The WorkOutDoors app takes your Apple Watch and turns it more into a full-featured sports watch like you'd find on the Garmin Epix, Phoenix, or Forerunner, at least from a software perspective. It does a lot of things. You can do intervals and workouts and track all different types of activities. In this video, I'm going to specifically show you how I use it for hiking. I've been using it for several years, so I'll show you what settings I use. We'll grab a trail off of All Trails and somewhere else, import them into WorkOutDoors, and then we'll take them out in the trail and go for a hike so I can show you how I use it and what the experience is like. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll feel confident in using this as a tool for navigating a hike. Now, the WorkOutDoors app does cost a couple of bucks if you want to buy it. This video is in no way affiliated with them, sponsored by them, or paid for by them. In fact, this is entirely user supported, so thank you for everyone who supports the channel. I just think this is a great app and I recommend it. I think it's a great tool. Also, the Footpath app is a little bit different in terms of how you navigate, but I'd check that out as well. I have a video on that. That's another good choice that I use quite a bit. If you have any questions as we go along, just leave me a comment, or if you have any tips, leave me a comment. And if you want to say thank you, just give me a thumbs up, and I appreciate it. It helps the channel out a lot. Let's hop on the phone so I can show you the settings that I use for WorkOutDoors. The first thing we want to do is go into the app. The general workflow is you change things on the app and then you send it to the watch. So the app is sort of the control center. You can change a lot of these settings on the watch directly. I'll show you that in a second. Here's the app. The lay of the land are there these tabs along the bottom. Workouts is your workout history. Screens is the way you can customize the screens. I'll show you that in a second. Routes is basically the routes we want to navigate by. I'll show you that in a second as well. Maps allows us to customize and download offline maps. I'll show you that. And then there's settings where we can really tweak what we see and the experience on the watch with WorkOutDoors. And this is where the heart of what I'll show you here in the beginning is. The first thing I want to show you, which might be the most important, is an off-track alert. And let's go into alerts. And one thing to note up top here, you'll see it says hiking alerts. If we click on these buttons, we can cycle through all of the different activities, but we want to do hiking. It's powerful because you can customize this for your runs, for your hikes. It can all be different. But anyway, right now you'll see I have notifications every mile. I get a little notification, but let's go to the off course alert all the way at the bottom. Here we go, off route. And if we click on off route, it allows us to turn it off or on. And what's really neat, and you can't do on Garmin's, at least not right now, is you can change the tolerance. So you can say, you know, I only want to be notified if I'm 60 meters off course, or for hiking, I just use 10 meters, so approximately 30 or so feet. If I'm from 10 meters, 30 feet off of the line that I'm going to navigate with, which I'll show you in a second, it will give me an off course alert. So very, very helpful. We're going to do that. And once we change a setting in the app, you'll notice this button pops up in the upper right-hand corner that says send. If you click on send, it will send this to the watch, and now it is on the watch, ready to go. Another setting for navigation, which is interesting, I actually don't use it, but it might be helpful for you, is if you go to other settings, and then we scroll down to routes right here, you can enable something called hollow routes. And what that'll do is when you're navigating on the map, instead of being on or off the line, it'll give you essentially lines on either side of the route, and then you need to be in between those lines. It doesn't really matter much to me. I didn't find it super helpful, so I just leave it off just to have less clutter on the screen, but I'm sure people will find that helpful. It's right there in other settings. All right, let's go back into alerts. I want to show you a handy and powerful type of alert you can do. It's called a status update, and this is essentially a customized alert where WorkOutDoors will tell you exactly what you want to know based on all the data that it has available every time you invoke it. And I'll show you how to invoke it in a second. But let's click on status update 1, and we can have up to 3 of them. Forget about shortcut gesture at first, but here we can have a vibration for a haptic vibration when it goes on there. But then here is the important part. There's 2 components. There's a screen message and there's a voice alert. They can be different. And every time we invoke the shortcut, the screen here will give us the time and distance, and the voice will come on and give us the time, distance, and altitude. And we can customize these, basically any of the data fields that you have, and you can see there's a ton of them here. There's a ton of them. we can customize this to be any of these things. So every time we invoke the status update, it will tell us whatever we need to know here. I'm going to cancel out of that. One thing to note, again, up in the upper right-hand corner, I've changed things. So it's saying send. We have to send it to the watch before the watch will have it. So let's go ahead and click on send. And now this status update is all set. Let's go to the top to shortcut gesture. And we can also get to the shortcut gesture if we go back in settings and we go to commands and then we go to shortcut gestures. You can see it's over here as well. And this allows us to essentially customize the buttons and the different physical actions on the watch to invoke certain functionality on Work Outdoors. So crown and side button, I have that for pause and resume. I think that's the default, so that's how I can start and stop an activity like a hike without having to use the touchscreen. Action button invokes the screen lock, and I recommend using the screen lock. If you don't use the screen lock, it's easy to kind of swipe across the screen accidentally and start and stop a workout or whatever. Screen lock works almost the same, if not the same, as the water lock on the app, but I have that assigned to the action button on my Apple Watch Ultra. You can see here there's a lot of different things we can assign to that button. There's all kinds of different things, but I have the screen lock assigned. One other thing that I have it set up with is the shake watch. So if I shake it when I'm hiking, it'll also give me status 1. Now you can set this up however you want, depending on what's important to you, and we'll go through the screens in a second, but just want to let you know that with Work Outdoors, you can customize all kinds of aspects, not only from a data standpoint, but also from a buttons and input standpoint here. Okay, let's hop over to the screens page, and this is another important one. Here you'll see all of the different activities that we can do, and you can customize which screens get shown for those activities. So let's go into hiking. And if we want to add a screen, so basically I'm going to be cycling through 3 screens here. If we want to remove one, we can just hit edit and delete them with this little button here. If we want to add one, we can just add one to the end and we can do whatever we want. There's some pre-baked versions of it. You can see we can click through this and get some pre-baked, screens there. Let's get rid of that one. Now, when we go into the watch or to the screen, you'll see there's different layouts that we can do, all customizable. And if we want to customize what's actually in here, one thing to note, if you change the text size, it'll change the number of screens available here on the layout. So very helpful. But let's click into the screen. I'm going to click on the icon or the image of the screen. And this is where the real power lies. There are hundreds of different data fields that you can customize and put onto the screen here. It's incredible, really. I mean, this brings it to the level of a Garmin. It might actually have more data fields than a Garmin does. Don't quote me on that, but there's literally hundreds of them. And if we click on the data field up here, you can see that I can change it to whatever I'd want to, all of them in here. So that's helpful. What I like to have on here is the time, the distance. I like to have my total ascent, so that's the total amount that I've climbed so far. I also like to have what is a rolling pace over the last mile. And what that'll do is it'll take my pace as I walk and average it over the mile. And it gives me a good idea of generally how quickly I'm hiking at the time. If you just have your straight ahead pace, it'll change whenever there's like a little speed up or slow down. And then I like to have the time versus target, and I'll show you how to set a target time in a second. But that's the screens, or those are the screens I have here. And then if we go back, you can see I can customize these other screens on this one. Let's go to maps, or actually go to settings and then maps. And then we want to change this to Thunder Forest. Thunder Forest maps have contour lines, and it's more of an outdoor and trail focused map than the standard Mapbox map set. These are all OpenStreet maps. We can customize the different styles here. So we can do, whatever we want. It's really, it's great. I mean, it's incredible what we can do here. You can change different aspects of the shading or whatever you'd like to do That's all done in here. One of the things I like to do is I like to change this above and below you. So if I go to the map, for above, you can change it to be like blue, and below we can change it to be red. And then when you're hiking and you're looking at a map with contour lines, you always know that things that are blue are higher and things that are red are lower. It's just another quick little visual way or visual cue to know where you are in relation to the altitude on a 2D map. So really, really neat. We'll go ahead and send that, and we're all set. So we've set up all the settings. Let's go ahead, hop on the computer and grab a hike from AllTrails, and we'll make one, and then we'll bring it into here, and then we'll go hiking with it. All right, here I am in AllTrails, and here's a hike that we'll do for this one. Let's click into the detail page. And if you notice this line right here, and if you look at any of the sites, whether it's AllTrails or Gaia GPS, or whatever it might be, they always have these lines. You can transfer these lines through something called a GPX file. There's a few different ways, but a GPX file is the universal way to do it. If you go to any of the hike guides on my website, the trail guides, I also have a GPX file. I'll show you to create your own in a minute. But let's go ahead and do this hike. And to start, let's go to More, and then download route. And then you can see here we can choose a different format. Let's go ahead and click on GPX track and hit OK. And that will save that file to our computer. We have to do a couple things to get that onto the watch. I'll show you that in a second. But first, let's create one on our own. I'm going to go to the site called CalTopo. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but this is a free site. And here we are at the same place. If I hit Add up here in the upper left-hand corner, and then Align, this will allow me to draw my own track, and we'll call this test track. Let's make it purple, because why not? And then let's start drawing. All right, there we go. Let's hit OK. Now, one other cool thing we can do is we can put little waypoints along the way. So if I go back up to Add, now we're going to add a marker. You can see I have this dot here. The dot's not the easiest to see, so let's make it something that we normally see here. There we go. And let's put it on the map here. We'll call this viewpoints. And let's save it. And let's go ahead and export this. And guess what format we're going to use? GPX, that's right. All right, so now I have two hike GPX files I want to transfer onto the watch. All right, here are my GPX files. You can see they're .gpx. We want to move those into our iCloud drive. Now you can airdrop them over to your phone as well, but we have to get them on the phone. So let me go ahead and open up my iCloud drive. And all I have to do is drag and drop these into here. And now they will sync to iCloud, and then I can bring them in to the WorkOutDoors app on the phone and then send them to the watch. All right, so if I go to my iCloud files on my phone, here you can see we have these two GPX files, and we're ready to bring them into WorkOutDoors. So let's go back to WorkOutDoors. All right, now that we're in WorkOutDoors, let's go to Routes. And then in the upper right-hand corner is Import. Let's click on that. And Locations, let's do iCloud Drive. And there are the two files. Let's take the export first. This is the one that we had originally. And there it is. You could see that we're on here. If we zoom in, that's the one we created. Here's the viewpoint. That's that little waypoint we had. That'll get sent as well. And all we have to do is hit Send to Watch. And now is on the watch. And if we want to send the maps for this, just hit Send Maps down here in the lower right-hand corner. Transfer to tiles. It's going to download the tiles it needs. The maps have been downloaded. And zoom out, you could see that this darker colored area are the tiles that have been downloaded. So let's also just send the AllTrails one in here too. And there it is, same as we had before. We can send it to the watch, and we should be all set. The map is already in there, no need to download. So it looks like we're all set to start hiking. All right, here we are at the trailhead, and I've got the Apple Watch here. The first thing I recommend doing is putting this into low power mode. That will turn the screen off when we're not looking at it, and it's definitely helpful. Turn on. You also want to put it into airplane mode. Right there is airplane mode. That will basically make sure that you save some battery, and the maps and everything that I showed you that got loaded on the map or on the watch is all available offline, so you should be okay there. Let's go into Work Outdoors, and here's the layout. We have all the different activities that we can do, and we could just click on hiking and it'll start us hiking right away. You'll notice that our data screens that we set up in the previous step are there. There's our time, distance, ascent, and if we swipe this way, you'll see that there's the screen 2, there's screen 3, and there's screen 1 again. So we've gone through those 3 screens. We're cycling through, all pretty straightforward. If we want to lock the screens, we can hit this action button, and that will lock the screen. And now I can't do anything here. Let's go ahead and unlock that. And let's go ahead and stop this because we're going to do a little bit of setup with the track before we get hiking. So if I do a long press, of course, it's not working now. Let's do a long press. The long press is what we use to start and stop it. So there we go. And I just hit end, and it didn't save it because it was so short. But in order to load our navigation, our route in, we're going to go down to settings and go into settings, and then go down to routes. Right here we have routes. Let's go there. And there you can see those are the 2 GPX files that we loaded earlier. That first one was from AllTrails. The second one is the one that we got earlier. And here it is. I've clicked on it. I've got nothing happened that said it's invoked or anything. But if we go back to settings there, and then I look, you can see it's got the name of it, export, right there. If we click on it, we can unselect it. No, we can unselect it. We can delete it. We can also use hollow or unhollow mode or reverse it. But I think we're good for now. Let's take a look at what's happening. So right now we're all set to hike with that target, but there's 2 other things that I like to do which are completely optional. First is in settings, and then if I go to pace, hiking, I like to set a target pace. I know that normally I will hike around 20 minutes a mile, 3 miles an hour, and if I do that when I'm hiking, my display that I set up earlier, which I showed you earlier, will show me how far or ahead or behind or ahead I am of my target pace. So if I'm going slower than I think and I'm going to be later, it'll be red. If I'm going faster, it'll be green. So I find that helpful. And then the other thing to think about is the distance left. Now, we loaded that GPX file in, but there's not really any navigation prompts with this aside from you are on the path or you are off the path, en route or off route. There's no like turn left in 50 feet. If you want that type of thing, get the Footpath app. I have a review for that. I'll put a link to that under this hike or under this video. But anyway, if we want to do it, we can kind of fool it to think that we're going a certain distance. If we go to fixed length, if I already know how far my hike is going to be, or I take note how far my hike is going to be in that GPX file, I can go to fixed length, and then I could go to set distance, and I can tweak how far I think I'm going to be hiking. Now, obviously, if you go off trail or you go off that route, it's going to be different, but we can choose what it is. We can make a target distance, and this will give us a distance left, which I'll show you in a second. But it looks like we're all good. Let's go ahead and hit start. It's going to give us this countdown. We can turn that off as well. And let's start hiking down the path and see what happens here. All right, now if we look at the screens, you can see I'm 23, 24 minutes. I'm stopped here, so that's how far behind the pace I am. I can pause this too by just hitting those buttons, which we configured earlier, and now it's paused. I could see my rolling pace there, and if I scroll through, there's the map. If I want to see this map full screen, I can just double tap there, and now I have full screen. Tapping on the icon, if I scroll around over here, I can move around, and this map redraws really quick, and combined with like a powerful processor like you have on the Ultra, it's a very quick experience, definitely quicker than any of the Garmin's that I have. But if we want to get back to where we were, we can just click on that compass rose. You can go north up or course up, and you simply use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. And there we are, we're either on the path or we're not. You could see that GPX waypoint that we put in called viewpoints up ahead, as is the turn. And all we need to do is stay on this purple line. If we go off the purple line, it'll give us an alert. I'll show you that in a second. And one of the neat things here, I have it set up so that I can click on the route down there, and there's the viewpoint. I could do show on a map. I can go into the viewpoint. So if you had like a long hike where you have a bunch of things going on, you could, you know, put them all in here and kind of look ahead. And then I can also go to this button, which I programmed in here, and I can unselect the route. So if I maybe planned a bailout route and I want to switch to that, I can go to that route, but that's in there as well. And then if I go to this next screen, you can see there's a distance remaining. That's how far based on that initial workout we did. Again, I could be going on and off of this track. It has nothing to do with the purple line or the track, simply with that target distance. So use that with care. And if you do stop or go off track, you might want to pause it so that that jibes up correctly. Let's go ahead and unpause it. Resumed. And let's start hiking. Remember I mentioned that status? We could shake the watch for the status. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to shake it if it was on my wrist.
Time 1 minute 41 seconds. Distance 0.05 miles. Altitude 26.
So very cool. It's giving us that little message. And, you know, if we ever want to just know how far we've gone or what our elevation is or whatever we want, we can configure it to give us that information as we go. But let's go ahead and hike up this intersection there and then go off route, and I can show you what happens when we go off route. All right, so here we are at the intersection. The one thing you'll notice is that WorkOutDoors doesn't give us any kind of prompts or information that we need to turn, but that's easy enough. If you come up to an intersection, you just consult your watch and see which way the purple line goes. Not really a big deal. But let's go ahead and walk off trail and see what happens, what kind of alert we get. Remember, we set this to 10 meters, and now I'm walking in a different direction here. And there was my off-course alert. And then if I come back here, now I'm back on the route, and it's really as easy as that. Now, to end the workout or to end the hike, we're just going to do that long press in again. Oh. And then just hit end. And it's syncing up, and now it is syncing with the watch, and then we can go take a look at it on the watch. You can also discard it, and you can look at some of the stats for this down there as well. But let's go ahead and hit done. All right, now I'm back in WorkOutDoors on the phone. If I'm at the Workouts tab, I can click here, and there we can see our workout, and we can get all of the stats for it. Very, very handy. We can also export this. So we could save it as a GPX file. We can send it to Strava. We can also make this a route for next time on our watch app. All pretty straightforward. And let me cancel out of this. Let's look at something a little more substantial here. Here's a longer hike, and you can get an idea of what it looks like. You can see there's an elevation graph. We can drag over it. All very, very helpful. And there are our elevation colors. Once again, remember the colors that we set? I didn't show you that because it was on a flat hike, but that's what it would look like as we hiked up. That red would just creep up, and you can change those colors to be whatever you'd like to be. But anyway, very cool. That's WorkOutDoors, and once you master that, you can pretty much use it as a very powerful navigation tool. That's it. Hopefully you feel confident, but if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. If you have any tips, leave them in the comments. If you want to say thank you, if you could leave me a thumbs up, I appreciate that. And if you want to check out another app that I really like, it's called the Footpath app. It's a little bit more robust in terms of navigation. I'll put a link to that up on the screen right now. But if you're looking for an app for your hiking and for navigation, I recommend watching both these videos and checking out and seeing what meets your needs better. All right, guys, I'll see you out on the trails.